Yeah.
We are here at CES 2025 in Las Vegas, and I have a very special guest with me today, Christian Steinman. Nice seeing you. We
Thanks.
missed each other in Guangzhou
Yes,
at the NIO Day.
exactly.
We will talk about the NIO Day in a moment, but first of all, Christian, please introduce yourself. You've been with Conti for, I don't know, 2 decades. And then you moved
Yeah.
into a startup company which is supplying NIO ET9 that was recently unveiled at the NIO Day in Guangzhou with the full active suspension. And this has been a long journey, not only for ClearMotion, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
So please introduce yourself, and then
Cool.
we'll get into, the product aspects of it.
So, automotive has been a very traditional business for a very long time.
Sure.
And I was lucky through my career to always be on the forefront of the technology. When I came out of school, I had the opportunity to do my thesis at Daimler, for instance, and did at the very early stage of turbocharger development, the variable turbo geometry development. And then out of that, I went to Borg Warner and did emission systems in the mid of 90s, where emissions were still sort of like long time ago. And it's at that point, this digitalization of propulsion started, but it was still on the IC engines. But with the electrification of the powertrain, you were able to improve further and further emissions and those kind of things. And then moving over, a company called me, which was at that time based in Hanover with 50,000 employees. They decided after Toyota had came out with the Prius in 96 to go hybrid development in 98. That's when I joined Continental.
Okay.
So it's a long time ago before anyone else really started to think about electrification. And again, had the opportunity to really be at the forefront of the technology development. And it was called ISET, the Integrated Starter Alternator at Conti.
Yep.
I've done that till 2004. During that period, I moved over to America because we got the contract with GM developing the first full pickup truck, the GMT 800. That was a Silverado pickup truck.
Okay.
With at that time 42 volt system.
42,
Yeah,
okay.
40. You remember those?
Yeah,
42.
Yeah.
So that was really the first electrification of the propulsion system, which was cool. Afterwards, within Conti, I moved into security systems like passive entry, passive go. After that, I moved back to Germany. Over there, I did the whole thing about instrumentation and displays for Daimler. If you look at the Daimler S-Class and those cars, they have these surfboard displays. We introduced that at that time, the touchpad in the middle. I've done that at the time.
Before MBUX or after?
Before.
Okay.
But this was, Daimler at that time had a very visionary head of engineering, Dr. Weber, and he at that time in 2013 really thought about that, say, in the future, there is going to be electrification, and anyone in the world can do electrification. We at Daimler have to sort of reinvent the in-cabin experience. So he put a lot of emphasis on like the entertainment inside and the HMI. That's when we stepped in as Continental, which was really cool. Again, very, very early at the stage. And then in 2013, actually, I moved over to the air suspension business at Conti. And over there, we developed the multi-chamber air spring with the Panamera, really drove vehicle control to the max with that existing technology as it was at the time. But it had its limits. And then by end of 2018, beginning 19, I got in touch. Actually, I had been in touch with ClearMotion before because ClearMotion was pitching towards Conti while I was at the air suspension business. But then later on, they asked me to help them to evaluate the company. I've done that. And in the end of the evaluation, the board of ClearMotion asked me whether I would like to become the CEO. That was a little bit of surprise for me. And I was like, ooh, this is like a big step, as you said, coming out of a long history of traditional automotive experience, going into a startup. It was refreshing, but a shock as well. It's like, so suddenly as a CEO of a startup, I was responsible for managing cash flow and really down to the dollars and convincing investors. If I'm an engineer, I'm not a venture person, so I had to learn a lot of that language of venture talk, and it had been very, very refreshing. It was very late in my career going into that, but hey, it was cool to learn all that stuff so far. And here with ClearMotion, probably what has excited me so much to go into ClearMotion, if you look, I've done the electric propulsion systems. I've done HMI devices. I've worked with my colleagues on the EBS units on stability controls and safety systems. We were as well involved in autonomous fleet operations through other activities as well. So I could see how all those megatrends started to evolve in electrification, of course. I forgot that. So as all those things come together, each individual trend is okay for itself, but you could see it comes to that tsunami effect. They're all coming to a point. You could see this coming. And out of my point of view, one thing was missing is the vehicle control. I like sailing. I'm sailing a lot. But one thing I have as a problem, I get motion sick. It's not good for sailing.
No, I can't do it.
But at least on the boat, I know what I can do, what I cannot do. But if I'm sitting in a car when I'm in China and I'm driving in a Didi and they're always doing this pumping and those things, I can't read my emails. So we in the automotive industry spending billions of dollars developing the next generation of vehicles, but we are not fixing the fundamental issue until now to avoid motion sickness in a car. And that really was, out of my personal experience, my main motivation to go into ClearMotion, because I say, wow, this system with the bandwidth as it provides can really eliminate or reduce significantly the risk of getting motion sick in the car. And once I realized what we can do over there, I said, oh, we can do way more on that. A long story, you see the history where I'm coming from, but it's sort of a natural step what I'm doing right now.
Now talk about ClearMotion and NIO, and talk about that process of.
I start back at Conti time, because I met William Lee the first time. I think it was end of 2000.
Well, NIO had signed a strategic cooperation with Conti. I don't know, 2019, 18ish.
We were actually ahead of this. I was head of the air suspension business. And since I had the understanding of propulsion system, I very early stage understood how revolutionary this system of the swapping the batteries is, what William had in mind at the time. At that point, NIO was just an idea. So I met the management team of NIO. They explained what they want to do and said, but we need to make that luxury vehicle really luxury. We need an air suspension. Are you willing to support us? And I said, you are high risk, but I'm willing to do this. So I went back to Conti and fighting internal, because that was traditional Conti at that moment. Fighting Conti said, we have to do this. I really want to do this. So eventually we did that. And out of this, a really strong relationship between NIO and myself started to develop at that time, which then when I moved over to ClearMotion, and after the 1.5 years in my role, obviously I had my annual touch points with the management team at NIO. I explained, hey, I'm doing active suspension and doing this and this. I've changed positions. They said, what, you're doing active suspension? We should talk. And that's when it started. By end of 20, beginning of 21.
End of 20, beginning of 20.
You remember? So in middle of 2019, I joined ClearMotion.
NIO was kind of in trouble,
Everyone was in trouble at that time, because I inherited an organization which was relatively big for what it did. So unfortunately, I had to reduce right after we were 250. We had to go down to 150 quickly down. We put away a lot of the plants and other fixed cost structures. Luckily, we finished all of that in 2019, because as we all remember, February of 2020, I moved from Germany with my family to Boston, and we moved right into lockdown. Remember COVID? We all still remember mask and everything like that. So at that moment, it was good fortune, or really good to see it. But we made all those decisions from that point. So actually, we built the relationship with NIO while we all were in lockdown, virtually with Zoom. Today, people ask us, how did you do that? I don't know any longer really, but we did it. We just found a way to make it happen.
as NIO does as well.
Yeah,
I mean, right? Talk about the technology itself, because I knew the founders of ClearMotion many years ago, almost 10 years now, and the difficulty putting a concept and making it a reality and putting it onto a production vehicle.
Yeah.
What's the most difficult part of this technology to make it work? Let's say automotive grade, right? We talk about automotive grade.
Yeah.
And you know, also,
I think your podcast is not long enough to explain that. But
sure.
There's a movie, and when everyone in my team is going to laugh right now because I'm always referencing this movie. You know, The Martian?
Sure.
So when Matt Damon, what's his, I don't know what's the character's name, but Matt Damon crashes on Mars.
Sure.
He has tons of problems. And one of the things, it's similar like a startup. You're getting into this situation. You land on Mars. You realize an antenna has pierced your suit. You're running out of oxygen.
Yep.
What's the next immediate action you have to do? You have to get oxygen. You have to get to your hub to get into a safe space. And now you're working all the way to survival to make it back to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really the thing. You just sort of the startup situation. When you get into that situation, you say, what is the biggest problem you have to manage at that moment?
Right.
And then, yes, your long-term objective is to survive and go back to Earth. This is your vision. Yeah. But in between, you have so many little items you have to work on. Exactly to your point. So when I came on ClearMotion, I said, sorry, holy shit, we have a lot of things to do at the same time. What is the most important thing? So like, first scale the organization, that cash flow is going to be managed.
Yeah.
Focus on the essential elements that to have a product ready. See whether the product the market needs, to your point, like vision or wish versus reality. Yeah. So really being pretty brutal to yourself and to say, is this product ready? Yes or no? If no, what do you need to do in order to, again, go through the product? We are the tier 1 supplier now to NIO. Yeah.
Sure.
It's probably, at least I'm not aware of any other startup on the hardware and software business. We're supplying the hardware plus everything of the software to NIO. We are a full system supplier as a tier 1. So if you want to manage such a complexity, you have to break down those elements into the different blocks so that everyone can work on one block and not in sequence, in parallel, because otherwise you never make it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I would say the secrets of success is understanding the problems, dissecting or boxing those problems into certain areas, and then have built strong teams that manage the individual problems in parallel, and be willing to fail. We failed many times as we developed and we said again, shit, we need to go back and what's option A, B, C? We always had like, okay, this is option A. If option A doesn't work, what do we do? Option B, and those kinds of things. We continuously did that on the hardware side, on the electronic side, on the software side, on the controls, and so on.
Yeah, and also just a reminder to our audience, this active suspension is not a standalone a feature. It's part of the NIO Sky Ride kind of experience, which combines the active suspension with ZF's steer-by-wire, and also the kind of the digital chassis architecture.
And then the entertainment as well.
To make it a holistic experiential.
This is really the unique thing with NIO and with the visionary mindset William has. He immediately understood with having an active suspension with this performance as ClearMotion provides, it's not just a chassis system. It is, yes, and it can enhance comfort, can enhance the handling. It can be used as safety aspects. If you watch the show at NIO Day, how he blows up
clearly,
how he blows out the tires, it wouldn't be done without active suspension and steer-by-wire.
How Herbert Diess said, it's impossible. It's impossible.
You know how the German translation was? It's unglaublich. Unglaublich is probably the word he wanted to use, and he translated that into impossible, but he probably meant it's incredible. So it's like I thought it was good. It was so good. But it was.
Yeah, so he's become from a Tesla fan to a NIO fan. So the product itself is produced at a plant in Changshu.
It's just west of, if you look at the map, sort of where there's
far from
Shanghai over there. It's like 2.5 hours,
Right.
a little west.
And not too far away from Hefei.
Yeah, it's I think we have another 3 hours by truck to 3 or 4 hours to Hefei. You have to go across the river.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so now it's on to the ET9. It's gonna launch.
So we are producing right now.
It's gonna start deliveries in March.
Yes, NIO is building NIO is building all the cars. We all know Chinese New Year is right around the corner by the end of the month, so we have this little slowdown. That's once a time in the year where China slows down a little bit.
It's about to slow down pretty quickly. Like by next week, it starts to slow down.
But this is like where we are just all out of the European or American world, like what we have in Christmas, they have in Chinese New Year or Spring Festival. Yeah. But right after that, this is really the ramp up starts. Right after Shanghai.
What volumes are you expecting, if you can share? You don't have to. I mean, that's
obviously no one knows how that is, but we
2 per vehicle. Tell us, how many per vehicle that.
So we have an actuator. We call it FAA. It's full full active suspension assembly.
Yep.
In the vehicle, and you have one of those devices at each corner. So you have
really 4.
Okay. So it's a multiplier by 4. Yeah.
Right.
And each of those devices holds its corner software. And what does it do? It's sort of like when you walk yourself. If you would take off your shoes and walk here over the carpet on the beach, you would actually sense the surface. And that's what we do as well. We obviously don't have a sensing device. We have the accelerometer in our device that. And based on the acceleration of the strut, we calculate immediately the counterforce. So the whole thing, what you see on those videos from NIO, it's a pure reactive system. And most of the people couldn't believe at the beginning that a system could be that fast, that we are working completely without any visual sensors. And that's really cool. The next step, and obviously we have 4 of those, and the 4 sort of legs, I would say perform like a blind dog, because we don't have any visual capabilities. We just have the sensing capabilities. That's sort of for the route planning. NIO is obviously using their lidars and camera systems, those kind of things. But what we are doing on top of that, which is not yet implemented at the ET9, is when you do this, obviously you're collecting a lot of data. And out of that data, we're collecting that into our device and then into the cloud. Out of that, we are creating a 3D map. And we have
you're talking about the road surface.
Yes, and that's what we call road motion then. And that leads into then a high definition map. And based on that map, when you drive the road the next time, we can localize
numbers.
But we can localize the tire down to the centimeter. And now you can drive it proactively. So this is the next step to come. Right now we focus on just the execution of the active suspension, but beside the hardware play, there's a big software play as well, with the data coming as well on top of it. And you might have seen the press release with Porsche we are doing. That's what we're doing on that side.
So speaking of Porsche, so outside of NIO going forward, what are your plans in terms of having? Now, this is not an exclusive partnership with NIO.
No, right? And that's again the mindset where I say it's very unique again how NIO works, we work together. NIO fully understands that the volume the NIO vehicles provide to us are good to start, but not sufficient to really have a sustainable business. So they're really supportive that we are going to other OEMs. Obviously, they would like to have the lead position in that. And by the way, NIO is so fast, I don't know who else can catch up with them. So I think by nature of NIO, they're going to be always first. It took us 24 months from here after nomination to go in production, actually less than 24 months. The next generation is going to be 15 months. So we are really going fast, going really quickly. And that's why we have structured ourselves to have like our advanced engineering center on the hydraulic system is located in Boston. It's just, since we are a spin-off out of MIT, we are located in Boston. There we have as well our advanced engineering team on road motion, the software over there, the fingerprinting software. Then we have the automotive execution team in England. And why in England? Because we had a lot of talents over there out of luckily ZF did us a favor. They scaled down their steering system in England, and therefore suddenly we had a lot of very talented individuals available in England, which are not only writing software, but which could write safety critical software, because our system, we have designed it for ASIL C, because as you said, saw that with a tire puncture, it's very important that our system works. So we have done that over there. So we have a very stable and very quick turnaround on the software development. And last not least, but very important, we are in China. In China, we have procurement, quality, and manufacturing, and the application engineering locally over there. But with this, we are defining the speed of the organization. And by merging those three pieces together, we really have a very unique organizational structure. I would say, if people ask me, where's my headquarters? It's somewhere. Yeah, it's somewhere. And it's important. I didn't want to create like an ivory tower, the silos. I wanted to have all those three regions very closely work together. And that's why I structured the organization this way, so that we really drive a global solution on that part, because that business is only successful if we make a worldwide applicable system.
And so back to the questions, you do have other interested OEMs. You're talking discussions right now.
Because of that, so obviously NIO is our
primary.
I call it internally our icebreaker. So this we're doing with NIO, and we are planning on the next generation. Obviously, there are some collaborations within the NIO environment, which are not directly under the brand of NIO, which are obviously following on that side. And some of those will be in Europe. So that's actually going to be our next approach into Europe. Then we already mentioned the activity with Porsche, which has been published. We're working on that side. And after NIO Day right now in Guangzhou, you can imagine what kind of response we get. So it's good. I would say everyone in the industry who is working on future vehicles sort of knows us right now. At least when I show my iPhone with a video of the Champagne Tower or the Yangtze, everyone know, oh, that's you? Okay. Especially here in CES, like we are far away from China, so everyone knows us. It's cool.
Which leads to actually probably our last question. Speaking of China, speaking of CES, you spent a couple of days here. I've spent some days here. You've been in China. We both of us just came back from China, and you walked the show with China factor in the back of your mind. What have you seen here that you think are interesting and will be important for the Western audience to really focus on, pay attention on? What are some of the highlights that you feel like you saw that are, for the industry? What's happening? Because a lot of things here, we're not in China, but at CES, we're in China. I
actually said that yesterday, where we had a different. We're here in the West Hall, with all the automotive. And actually, it was funny. I thought the first language spoken over here was Chinese. The second one was actually German. And the third one was English. So you can see, you're absolutely right. It shows how global this event is. And it's really, despite all the global tension around the world, this becomes one hub. It's really, if you want to meet the world, you come here. This is once a year, you do that in the automotive space. And what I see is more and more those boundaries in the traditional automotive industry. You have this chassis, you have this entertainment, you have those silos as they used to develop cars in the past. I think you see this more and more, that this breaking down more and more in the industry, because people understand, if you're just working those silos, I cannot deliver that future vehicle any longer, which meets those customer demands. Because if I walk in, I want to have my iPhone or my Samsung or whatever Android device directly connecting to the car, and it should be seamlessly working across the board. I want to watch a movie. I want to know where I'm charging my car. I want to play a game. I want to sit in the rear seat, probably ordering just a car, like we experienced here, the teleoperated driving vehicles from way over here, which are cool as well. So it's all very cool, and all those things are coming together right now. And you cannot meet that future demand of consumers by just working in those blocks. You need to go in the vertical dimension across. And that's, I see more, it started already right after COVID slowly. And this is probably the most normal CES I've seen after COVID. Right after COVID, we all wear masks over here, then the other one. But we see this picking up in speed, that more and more of that consumer electronics and entertaining really penetrating now the automotive market, and as well in the development speed.
Yeah.
It's not only the product. You can say, in the past, everybody said, yes, we have immersive experience with consumer products, but the automotive industry still stayed in that mindset, I still need my 36 months to go in production. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because time to market is so critical. If you need more than a year to bring up something new, you're outdated.
Yeah, I think speed matters. My conclusion for this CES is, we say the Chinese are coming, but they're here. And I don't mean they're here at CES.
Yeah.
They're here in America because, one example, the Zeekr RT will be on the Waymo platform starting this year. And
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that too. Yeah, that will be my conclusion.
Yeah. And you can put trade barriers up and those kind of things, but business is like water. It always finds a way to flow down the hill. And it's the same thing. You can put walls or whatever, tariffs up there. If there's a business, it will come in here. And the incredible situation in China is this fierce competition among the Chinese OEMs.
Yeah, we know.
But that drives really a lot of innovation and drives that speed. And the people who are just not matching that speed, they just fall off that plane. Yeah, and that's why it's so good for us to be so closely connected to NIO, because we are learning how to do that very fast, and perhaps even sometimes fast.
Yeah, it makes you faster when you work with a fast company.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Christian, for your time. And it's nice to meet you here at CES.
And you should come over to our facility in England.
I will.
We have
or Boston or England, whatever.
Yeah. But in England, we are up in Birmingham area at the Meyer Proving Ground.
I've never been to England, so maybe this will be my first time.
Okay,
that's the ClearMotion.
Is that an objective for 2025?
Yes, it is.
Let's make that an objective for 25. Cool. See you in England, yeah.
And thank you for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe on all the platforms where you get your podcast. And thank you again.
Thanks a lot. Yep. Bye-bye.